1,000 gold behind. They really struggle in the early game, and Dan has struggled to dictate the pace. So I think this is a big game for Dan to step up.
Well, we are going to jump straight on into picks and bans. Schalke on the blue, Wind and Rain on the red. Galio banned out straight away, so we're not going to see Larsen or Cadril on that mid lane tank. And then Zach taken away by Wind and Rain. We are still on 7-12, not that 7-13 patch was a few of the changes. Nothing drastic there, but enough changes to change the meta slightly. And Schalke are going to get rid of the LeBlanc alongside that Gragas from Wind and Rain.
Yeah, I definitely think Wind and Rain should stick with targeting Memento at this point. Like you mentioned before, Dan has had a less impactful game than he wanted to. He's picked Kha'Zix a couple of times. It's not really been there. Hasn't really been the showboat champion in the early game that it should be. So targeting the jungle pool Memento is really good here.
It looks like there's a couple of bans going into Larsen and JWoww here. Jace and LeBlanc taken away. Caitlyn doesn't surprise me at all. Anybody that has played League of Legends in the past month will realize how oppressive Caitlyn is in lane. But by limiting jungle pool, Schalke now give themselves a good first pick.
Yeah, at least first pick is kind of expected. You do still have the Thresh here for Wind and Rain if they want to take that one. It's the other first pick that we tend to see at the sort of higher levels of play. Alongside that, there's still a few junglers available for Dan. He could go to the Rek'Sai. Ivern still on the cards. A few changes in this patch.
And Dan's a pretty good Lee Sin player, yeah. So you know you could always consider Lee Sin. That's another jungler pick that has always remained at the top tier of things if you are pretty confident with Lee Sin. Like you said though, Thresh, very, very important, very, very high priority right now. And again, it's not going to escape Wind and Rain here. They're going to give that to AOD. Absolutely
not. I mean, if that Tristana gets locked in as well, we've seen it once before. It doesn't. I shouldn't have spoke about hovers, but we have seen it once before already in LCK. Not in LCK, sorry, EU LCS. And I really want to see it come back.
So yeah. Reckless is playing it a lot in EU LCS, and actually it was played a lot in NA LCS over this past week as well. Kind of hitting the sort of same point as the Caitlyn. Very strong hyper carry late game, has longer range than the Caitlyn, and you can build that energy build, the Energizer build with the rapid fire cannon and the static.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what it also allows is just excellent, very quick turret rotations, turret taking. Remember, explosive shot can apply to turret, allows you to just completely shred those. And with a game that really does revolve around getting early first tier ones in the bot lane, making rotations off the back of that and continuing that momentum, Tristana is one of those perfect picks in this situation.
In that situation as well, we're looking at Upset as this hyper carry, right? We've seen him play the Kog'Maw already. Tristana does exactly the same thing. And I want to see Woolite kind of control this early game and just make sure he's pushed underneath his turret and stop him from farming, stop him from making early game plays. And I think this is actually a really good pickup for them here. Shen gets locked in as well. That's going to help Woolite in the laning phase. Same with Larsen, who likes to play more of these scaling mages.
Does mean they haven't picked their jungler yet, though, and that means that we will see bans from Schalke towards that jungle role, the Rek'Sai being taken away already.
On the flip side, though, you still haven't got mid locked in, you still don't have AD carry locked in here for Schalke, so you can do literally the same thing and start to limit things back over to Schalke here, and that's what looks like Wind and Rain are doing with the bans of the Orianna and the Cassiopeia.
Yeah, take it away from Cadril. Larsen very strong on both of those as well, so you're kind of counter-banning yourself. I agree with the AD carry pool, but Schalke have shown us they've got quite a wide pool. They play the Kog'Maw, they can play Ashe pretty well. Upset's always been very strong on any AD carry.
Kallista's still up there and available.
Draven, if he really wants to bring it out as well. He's already got protection from that Tahm Kench. Now we have to see where Schalke and Wind and Rain put their priorities. Wind and Rain looking for a mid laner or a jungler here. Probably going to pick the jungler so they get that mid counter.
Well, yeah, potentially. Or you'd imagine that with limiting some of the mid lane picks, they might want to take something that they don't want to give over to Cadril. So there's two ways of looking at it, I suppose. You're not going to be in threat of losing your jungler, but again, Larsen having the counter pick is more important in their eyes.
Here we go. Got a game on our hands now. Oh boy.
I played against the Nunu yesterday. It is the most frustrating thing in the world. Because all that happens is he runs under your tower and then just like ice blasts, like ice ball to the face of one of your teammates. And you can't get away because he's just standing there tanking. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this from War. Ooh. It's going to be the Twitch for Upset, and Cadril plays a safe Corki in the mid lane.
Yeah, that's always been pretty safe. And obviously Corki now coming back into the meta on 7-12, basically changing those Hextech munitions to 80% based magic damage, making him hit a little bit harder with those auto attacks with an AP based build. So yeah, Corki coming through, and Cadril, like you said, very safe mid laner as well. Corki, whenever Corki has been in the meta, he's always been traditionally known as a very safe mid laner because of that Valkyrie, able to escape most situations. He's on a fairly long cooldown, but you only need to escape once, right? You know, you don't have to sort of get caught out. So Larsen's going to respond with the cast-in that we have seen quite a lot of over the previous weeks, and Cast-in post level 6 has the ability to consistently pressure the Corki. You know, you can get out of the Phosphorus Bomb with the Rift Walk, you can jump into him, start using that huge damage burst that Cast-in provides. So it's just a pretty tough early laning phase, as it always is for Cast-in versus a ranged champion in mid lane.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to get poked out. Like, he's going to start Corrupting Potion. There's no if and or buts about it. And we touched on it on a minute ago. Wind and Rain don't have the strongest early game, funnily enough. their early game right now, with the Shen, with the Nunu, with the Kassadin, it's not looking so strong either. They're going to really have to rely on Woolite being able to push in this Twitch, just making sure the Twitch is under as much pressure as possible, and then play around it from there. Nunu, fantastic at objective control, such as the turrets and obviously the dragons, and especially Riftail being such a priority at the moment. I actually really like that pick. He just needs to be able to get that forward vision down to make sure his lanes are safe.
Makes a lot of sense.
I think a lot of what you're going to see here from Wind and Rain is post-level 6 tower dive, post-level 6 tower pressure. They have got an excellent dive composition. Like you said, you described it perfectly. Nunu just runs at you, starts ice blasting. Shen will also be able to make him even more unkillable when he goes into a dive situation. And then you've got Tristana, who can then focus towers so very easily off the back of a dive anyway. So they've got a very good dive composition, a very good pick composition with the Thresh as well. But again, if they do lose the early game, if they do get pressured out, Dan not having the same level of pressure than he potentially should be, that will never come to fruition, and I think they could end up just losing from being snowballed out of the laning phase.
Does the worry then become for War that Schalke have looked very clean in the last weeks against Origin? They almost perfect gamed Origin. Are you actually able to play up against that really strong early game that Schalke have shown us? They've got the Renekton, they've got Elise, they've got so many early game threats. I'm worrying for War that they aren't going to get to this late game, even level 6 power spike that they hit.
For me, and Jaws, you talked about it to me before the broadcast, you said that Schalke have looked really good in the early game, and I think Wind and Rain have had a really poor early game, and now you've taken a very lane-focused, sort of not lane-dominant set of picks. They're either conceding the early game and trying to play for later, or, you know, just are happy to let Schalke do what they want.
Oh, we'll have to wait and find out. We are into game number 1. Schalke over on the blue side, Wind and Rain over on the red. Can Wind and Rain just push forward to their next win to order solidify their spot in the middle of the table? Memento maybe caught out a little bit here, does use the flash away from the shadow dash from JWoww. Does end up blowing that fairly early on, which is quite key, especially for an Elise coming up against these very low mobility lanes.
I like the moves from Wind and Rain there. Memento not having flash actually does limit his potential to make really aggressive ganks in the early game. You know, everyone's seen the flash Elise Cocoons follow up, or Cocoon then flash and use the Venomous Bite to try and find those, you know, executing kills to snowball the laning phase. So yeah, I think good moves from Wind and Rain to group up and just force something out early. Any kind of small advantages that you can take from Schalke as Wind and Rain at this point in time is only going to help alleviate what has been poor early games from you in the past few weeks. You've had a really struggling time to get out of the laning phase ahead, and actually, like you said, on average have ended up behind in the laning phase. Minus 3,000 gold at 15 minutes is a stat that we should remember. Schalke, however, on the other hand, have always been up at 15 minutes. And that's where I worry for Wind and Rain right now. They've not got lane-dominant lanes. And Memento can impact lanes very heavily with Elise. You've got a lane-dominant pick with Smitty J on Renekton. Caedrel's going to pressure Larson pre-6. It's just that bot lane where you're not going to have the same level of push. Tristana should outpush the Twitch here. And that is probably the lane that is most important to Wind and Rain. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you want that Tristana to be able to siege. You look at Shen, you look at Kassadin, you're okay, what are they going to do at the 15 to 20 minute mark? You're going to want Larson sitting in a side lane. He's going to want to have that Lichbane second item to be able to push and pressure those turrets. But JWoww, he is going to be able to push against Smitty J, but he's always going to be under that small inkling of pressure if Renekton does manage to get ahead. And we look at the items as well, starting 3 Doran shields. Not 1, not 2, we have 3 on the side of Schalke. Very, very safe. Don't want to play it too aggressive with the Doran's Blade on the Renekton. I mean, don't mind it whatsoever, because we know War's early game not so strong, and Schalke, if they can take advantage of that, they're going to surely pull ahead.
I mean, it's just a safe start in almost every situation to have a Doran shield, but I'm interested that I mean, what else would you go on Caedrel, I suppose? I mean, I would have expected he maybe wanted to be a bit more dominant on this Kassadin in the early game, but instead going for the Doran shield. We're going to wait War. He's coming into the mid lane here.
Yeah, Dan is going to march his way up. He does Ice Blast Caedrel, but Caedrel has got that Valkyrie to get away. And Red buff is burning. So it's a little bit of harass at least. It's going to help Larson sustain. Hasn't actually blown any of these refillable potions. Has got the Dark Seal as well for the extra regeneration. JWoww is going to find Memento and Smitty J, but with that repel, Memento gets out pretty much scot-free.
Yeah, I mean, they just went for a cheeky bit of damage onto JWoww, but didn't even force him to burn his flash there. Good moves, though. Smitty J, again, like we said, is going to have that push advantage in the top lane. And again, both mid and top are going to shove consistently for Schalke. That is the lanes where I think Memento could either look to force tower dives, but if he's looking to impact a lane that is going to be pushing against him, it's that bot lane, and that is the bot lane that is important to Schalke. Noscaron gets hooked here.
Oh, nice hook onto Noscaron. There comes the Lantern as well. He's got that bomb on him. Does use the flash. It's ignited as well. Snowball does follow in through. Dan's not going to be able to find it. That kill. Noscaron does survive, but blows both summoners.
Yeah, both summoners gone now. Exhaust and flash. That was a great hook from AOD, and Dan actually starting to look to pressure lanes very early on as this Nunu here. Has actually basically gone against what we know Nunu's to be as an encounter jungling sometimes, and he's actually losing some of his own jungler to Memento, but is out-pressuring Memento at this point in time. He's got a little bit more work done across the map. The issue now for War is they need to be able to capitalize on that. And like we said, they really want to make rotations based around how easy it is for their bot lane to shove with this Tristana. They're going to want to pressure this bot lane tier 1 as quickly as possible, post level 6 especially for Larssen and JWoww. So keep your eye on Dan's rotations in the next few minutes, especially gearing up to post level 6 sort of territory for Wind and Rain. They will be looking to make plays around that bot lane tier 1, especially now after having burnt Noskeren's summoners, and that flash not being up for the next 5 minutes could be pretty key.
Yeah, it's about patching up that early game for War in this one, just making sure they can show everybody that we can play the early game fairly well. Because if we look at one of their wins against RB, 54-minute game, the longest in CS right now, and one just because RB, their late game, was just not quite there for them, and they did manage to kind of turn it around because they were ahead most of the time in terms of gold, and War just sticking out to the very end, Larssen being one of those key carries on the Cassiopeia, and now on this Kassadin is going to be pretty proficient, especially against Kadriel, who doesn't have the teleport either. So again, when it does get to mid-game, it's going to be very, very punishing for him. War actually rotating their bottom side up towards the top with JWoww here as well. This is very, very sneaky. They haven't actually spotted them. No wards in the lane.
They're looking to basically get an early rotation onto this top lane tier 1, catch Smitty J off guard, and try and force a top lane tier 1 very quickly. This is a very sneaky move here, but the response from Schalke is there.
They haven't actually secured a first turret or first blood in this whole tournament thus far. They want to make sure they can get at least one stat on the board, right? Smitty J is going to be able to clear that wave without too much of an issue. JWoww is going to be there just to make sure Smitty J doesn't go anything too aggressive. And now Memento rotating up towards the top side as well as upset Noskeren.
And they feel like they are now pretty confident. They've actually committed to this rotation pre-taking tier 1 towers. This is a very early rotation here from the bot lane from Wind and Rain, which means they have now committed themselves to keeping Woolite and AOD in this top lane and now having to force JWoww down to the bot lane. This is a very odd set of moves because what it has now done is that it's experience throttled them for just a little bit. They weren't able to get the net result, and they put themselves in a very awkward territory where they are now having to go into a matchup where, yes, they're going to get the shove onto the Renekton, but he's actually got better wave clear than the Twitch has, realistically, when it comes to under tower. So they're not going to get the same level of shove against the Twitch and the Tahm Kench that they were previously.
Smitty J still taking a little bit of harass, but Doran's Blade and Doran's Shield working out fairly nicely for him. He's got a whole lot of equipment. Has hit the level 6, which means JWoww is also level 6. Has got that Stand United, so you could argue that the teleport there wasn't amazingly necessary in terms of just getting an early map advantage, but with that Stand United up does mean they can look for those turret drives like you were mentioning earlier.
He had to just protect Twitch from potentially taking that first tier 1. If no one responded to it, then he might have actually ended up losing the tier 1 in general, and that whole move from War would have been incredibly poor. But now we've basically got a complete role reversal with Upset having enough time to take the bot lane wave and then rotate back up to the top lane, and suddenly we're back into square one, but the map has been flipped on its head.
I mean, with this Nunu, I talked earlier about the objective control, especially neutral objectives. With the bottom lane now being up near the top, and with Shen being level 6, it's going to be very easy for them to rotate down to this Rift Herald now. With their top lane not having teleport, but they still have to Stand United.
Mountain Drake is the first Drake that is up, right? So that's you'd say on the scale that's the second most important Drake that you'd often like to take, especially with Tristana, by the way. Mountain Drake with Tristana makes it that much easier to take turrets very quickly off the back of Explosive Shot, and obviously then, furthermore, neutral objectives like Baron and the Rift Herald itself. So, I mean, you would have thought that they would have wanted everything to do to keep their pressure in the bot side of the map, because that would have allowed them to then take things like that Drake off the back of a tier 1 turret dive. And now the problem is they've just basically reset all of their progress and have to start again from square one almost.
Absolutely. That teleport is about half cooldown as well now. So, yeah, you're right. Pretty much resetting their progress completely. Well, I only picking up the pickups on the first back. You saw Upset picking up those Berserker Greaves, and now Larssen is starting to get online. Roa almost complete for him. He's got 2 core items.
One of the problems also with this swap is that you can, even if you get top lane tier 1 first, the problem is you now can't capitalize by taking anything else off the back of it. Realistically, you could rotate mid, you could maybe go for top lane tier 2, but you can't now go and take Drake. You could go for Rift Herald, obviously, but obviously that's not just quite up just yet, so you kind of have to wait for that to spawn, and by that point you are delaying the game a little bit. I guess what this has alleviated is a laning phase almost. It has kind of alleviated the laning phase for Wind and Rain, which means that it's an area that they've always struggled with. By doing this, it's now potentially accelerated their late game, or at least made it easier for them to get to late game, because it's kind of put Schalke in an awkward position. And I guess the quicker you can get laning phase done with, the quicker you can get out of a situation where Memento could have more impact than Dan, that might be better for Wind and Rain.
Well, speaking of laning phase here, Schalke earlier on in the tournament had a problem drafting winning lanes, and that's exactly what they're doing here. The Corgi into the Kassadin's not really going to do much. Dan and JWoww might be in a little trouble though. Cadril does have that package available to him. He's going to use it to disengage instead. He's going to find Larssen. Did spot him on the roam there. So we'll be able to just make sure Larssen can't join the fight, but Cadril playing that package is going to be pretty big. Noskarian getting jumped on once more. There's the bomb on him. He has got the grey health still available. Wasn't too much of a worry, but War now get priority over this top lane.
Rift Herald spawning fairly soon, so the shove still with Woolite and AOD. They do have the kill potential of the Ignite as well. Dan could make a rotation up to top lane, try and combo with JWoww's ultimate and push onto this top lane tier 1, which is very low at this point. Another explosive shot, max stacks, will get a huge amount of work done here for Woolite and AOD.
There's the Lantern to safety, and now it is the time for Dan to kind of rotate towards this top side. Like you said, Rift Herald is available now, and you can see what Schalke wanted to do. They wanted to take JWoww out of the fight in order for them to have an advantage, net advantage in terms of people over that Rift Herald. But that Cocoon missing, and Memento showing himself now on this bottom side. I want to see what Dan's going to do here. He's going to take that Blast Cone over. That Rift Herald, especially with that top lane pushing, is going to be almost free for the taking.
Well, bot lane tier 1 is already going to go down here. I love the moves from Memento, realizing that everything for War was invested in this top lane tier 1 dive now, and they had that shove potential of the Renekton versus the Shen. And Renekton now with a bit of extra AD behind him. He's got the long sword there as well as the Doran's blade, able to just shove onto that bot lane tier 1 so easily. And the threat of a dive was too great for Memento. No one able to there to respond, and they give up their bot lane tier 1 before War were able to take that top lane tier 1. But it looks like the Rift Herald will now be focused in by Dan and the gang.
Dan and the gang.
Dan and the gang. So they will get something off the back of that tier 1 take, which is kind of what their initial aim was, I think, from the first place. Yeah,
remember, JWoww still has that Sound United as well as that teleport. Larssen teleporting back to mid lane just before they started that Rift Herald. Did manage to pick up the rower. So it's going to be very important for him to scale up. And now there's nothing really Schalke can do. That will go over completely for free. Dan's going to nom that one down. He's going to take that one for himself. And now War, can they crack another turret with that? And which one will it be? Because we've seen it prioritized over the mid time and time again. And especially in this casting Corki matchup, it's going to be very, very imperative for Larssen to get an early lead.
War in with the jab, but it looks like Schalke in with the hook. They take the Mountain Drake off the back of the Rift Herald, so trading objective for objective once more. Again, both of them achieve similar ends. Both of them are there to help take neutral objectives like towers, but again, Rift Herald is designed to open up an area very quickly, or open up a key area like mid lane tier 1, whereas obviously we know that Mountain Drake has the longevity of its impact throughout the game. Larssen now, like you said, hitting those spikes gives him massive trade potential versus Corki. Had a very easy laning phase, and I think this is something that we should really focus on for Wind and Rain. Their areas of weakness have been Dan's impact in the early game and their laning phase, and then coming out of the laning phase behind, they were able to recuperate and find their late game. This, despite some very odd moves from them, this has been an easy laning phase for Wind and Rain. They have not been pressured early on, which is good for them, you'd imagine.
I mean, absolutely, and you can kind of attribute to some of that to the level 1 invade onto the Elise. Blowing her flash early on, especially against a lane like this Kassadin, it's going to be imperative for her to catch him to make Cadril, you know, get ahead, just push him towards that first item being the Hex Drinker. But not having that flash available just lowers the gank potential. And now, War are just pushing and pressuring this vision line, which I mentioned earlier. Dan doing a fantastic job of it on this Nunu. With that Tracker's Knife just pushing in, and he's only got the Tracker's Knife to his name. It does look funny when there's only one item on his in his inventory.
I think that's not completed.
Yeah, that's completed in Cinderhulk, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not just Tracker's Knife, it's completed Cinderhulk.
Yeah, it's completed Cinderhulk, yeah.
If it was just Tracker's Knife, I was like, Dan, what have you been doing with your time?
He missold something, because like, whoops, hang on a second, boys. Oh, we need to buy a ward.
Vision has been so important, though, especially like you said. The threat of that vision around the top lane tier 1 has made it very difficult for Noskarian and Upset to push much further than the midway point between their destroyed tier 1 and their tier 2. The blue side jungle feels completely in control of War, and you can see Memento And Norskerin now doing a little bit of work to reclaim vision lines in their blue side jungle.
Yep.
Now we're going to see a counter rotation for this bot lane tier 1. This is a very interesting sort of delayed rotation game coming out from War, but again, they have that threat of very quick tower takes, and they can do this by forcing, and this is really interesting, this is kind of a point that relates back to that vision line we were talking about. Schalke had to spend a good 45 seconds clearing vision in the blue side jungle because of the threat of that vision. Now with Rift Herald and the rotation, it's got a massive, massive advantage in terms of who's got to this tower quicker. And now War are going to get a free tier 1 in the bot lane.
Yeah, they're going to get a free tier 1, but Upset and Norskerin are cracking the tier 1 in the top side for War. They're going to march down this lane. There's 4 members here, only 2 in the top side. That turret hasn't yet fallen here, and actually one of them recalling. Upset's probably just going to get the solo goal for that. Kadril does have that package. SmittyJ hasn't really got the wave clear. Hook goes a little bit wide. There goes the Herald. Does smack a little bit of damage in, but with that rotation from Memento, we'll just make sure War do not get anything more.
Yeah, again, that's what Corki can provide. Such good and consistent wave clear. It's going to jump onto Larssen. No mana for Larssen here.
No mana for Larssen. It gets exhausted as well. Stan United from JWoww is going to keep him safe. They're just going to straight up recall. Stan United straight into the recall. My favourite way to play Shen.
I mean, it's an exhaust for Stan United. It's kind of, you'd say that's an even blow, to be honest, in terms of cooldowns, in terms of its impact. But what it has allowed is Kadril to get some good damage onto this tier 1, and a healthy rotation from Schalke might allow them to pressure this mid lane tier 1 very quickly. Memento looks like he's taking an aggressive position. Larssen low on HP, does have blue buff, but still doesn't have the mana available to make full combos happen. The wave clear comes through. Larssen's teleport will be up soonish, but the wave clear gang of Woolite has come here with his explosive shot, and that should be enough, you feel, to ward off any super aggressive moves onto this turret.
Yeah, Kadril not the best right now at taking turrets, although he does have the Sheen, so he's doing a little bit more damage than he normally would, but like you said, minion clearing machine is Woolite with the static shiv. Medic did mention it previously as well. He can go for that double energizer build. Extremely effective when it comes into mid to late game. The amount of burst damage, burst potential that Tristana does have is extremely proficient. And one thing you've got to mention with Tristana, passive, the fact that she gains range over time. She gains range with level, so it's going to be very, very hard for Upset to enter these fights because Woolite's always going to have the advantage in that respect. Yeah,
I mean, obviously Twitch Ultimate gives him a massive range advantage as well, but that's only a limited time period. You can disengage quite healthily from Wind and Rain by just using all the mobility that you have on your side. You've got the Nunu W, you've got Larssen's jump, you've got Woolite's jump, JWoww's got his taunt to get out of there, as well as the lanterns. There's so much disengage potential when Twitch Ultimate gets used. You know, you have to set up a wombo combo almost for Schalke, and where does that wombo combo come from? Maybe it's SmittyJ getting a good stun onto someone. The later this goes, the more you feel it favours Wind and Rain. Ooh, right, here we go.
Play the Rune King use. There comes the Buster Shot. He's going to take that Lantern away from the Tongue Lash from Norskerin. He's going to be able to just back off now, and the problem is no health regeneration, no life steal for Woolite, so can't sustain himself like Upset can in these small trades.
Something we didn't sort of touch on too much is those changes to Corki, and obviously you still see the similar build path of the Triforce, but Sorcerer's Shoes now gets so much more efficacy when it comes to his basic attacks. You know, 80% of those Hextech munitions will now penetrate a bit. Oh yeah, it's true. You're true damage when we're talking about.
It's also 7.13 is the update where the percentage gets changed. 80% and 20% for magic damage.
I thought it was 7-12.
Am I wrong? I'm completely wrong. All right. All right, I'll let you off, mate.
We were both wrong in the same sentence, so it doesn't actually matter. We cancel each other out.
Oh, boy. 2 negatives make a positive at the end of the day. Something like that, anyway.
We're rewriting the old fable of 2 wrongs make a right.
Absolutely. Well, hang on a minute. JWoww's in a lot of trouble here. Norskerin did use that Abyssal Void. First blood goes over to Memento. Dove straight underneath that turret. Dan's going to be here as well. Here comes Larssen with a teleport. Does get exhausted straight away. Woolite's going to jump straight on in though. 4-man flay. 4-man box. Are they going to be able to get away? Memento takes an ice ball. Also takes a shot from Woolite. He goes down, and Woolite looking for these resets, looking for these kills. Norskerin being able to escape alive, but SmittyJ, Memento do go down, and that will mean a free dragon now for War.
The benefit of a double teleport composition for Wind and Rain, their ability to respond to these types of situations that much higher than Schalke, with Kadril being on the opposite side of the map, split pushing in a side lane. It was a risky dive for Schalke to make. They have to respect the response potential from Wind and Rain, and the response was swift. Get a dragon off the back of it as well. Something that I said, oh my god, it was first blood at 17 minutes into the game, 18 minutes into the game. That was what surprised me so much. We have seen almost no action in terms of trades at this point, but Schalke do pick up the first blood, but do pay for it in terms of, you'd say, a global net loss. And Kadril can't really be sat in a side lane the entire time, especially without the package. Remember, package has got a very limited time period of which you can use it.
Hasn't really made any massive plays either. We saw the little rotation down to cut JWoww off in the bottom lane, but Dan was there underneath that turret. Would have made it a very, very hard turret dive, regardless of that package being there. You see Larssen now just consistently finding these midway pushes. He's going to have it with the Lich Bane. JWoww in a little bit of trouble. He's going to get exhausted. Kadril not really much mana left, but JWoww hasn't got a turret. He's going to chase him up, in fact. He has got Titanic Hydra doing a fair bit of damage, and those minions are chunking him out as well. Memento comes through, misses the cocoon. JWoww tries to get the taunt off, but Memento finds his next kill.
And something that we didn't talk about is how War will want to employ, eventually you think after taking this mid lane tier 1, a 1-3-1 eventually with Larssen having a teleport and JWoww having both teleport and his ultimate. And that might be difficult for Schalke to respond to effectively as this game progresses. You would imagine that Larssen's going to be able to duel Kadril on a 1v1 basis quite effectively. And with the Titanic Hydra completed for JWoww, he will at least be able to wave clear effectively against Smitty J. So you think that this is going to likely move towards a 1-3-1 eventually for Wind and Rain, and then they can either group to tower dive around an objective, or they can group to, you know, take something like a Baron or set up a tower dive on another turret. So that's where you would imagine Wind and Rain will want to move eventually, having the double teleport on board. And Schalke will have to commit either Kadril to wave clear in a side lane, who cannot respond as quickly, you know, as someone like Larssen can with that teleport. You know, Kadril might be sort of shoved into a side lane where he's going to lose potential, although he's got the package here. And they do have to be careful about a dive on this mid lane tier 1, because that's looking pretty unhealthy right now for Wind and Rain.
So still looking pretty unhealthy for Schalke. There goes the package use. Will just be used for the disengage as well. So look at that turret health. At half at the moment, just under for Schalke. So this mid turret is going to be the next one to fall, you can imagine, with Mountain Drakes on both sides. I mean, you mentioned being a net gain after that first blood, especially taking that Mountain Drake away, and having that on Woolite is going to be absolutely huge. Yeah. Already mentioned his turret taking potential, and with Larssen sitting in these side waves as well, he's also got a lot of extra damage on that turret with the Lich Bane. It's going to look dicey now for Schalke. And I mean, what can they do in the next 5 minutes to kind of subvert that is kind of the big question.
Here comes Upset.
I mean, here comes Upset. He has to activate that rat-a-tat-tat, that spray and pray. Dan takes a lot of damage, but being Nunu, he's just going to walk away or waddle away, or whatever a machine does. He does end up getting out of that one without too much of an issue. No summoners really burnt on the side of War either. That's going to be the kind of story, isn't it? The amount of disengage that War do have is pretty big.
And like you said, you mentioned something that I was going to touch on. That Lich Bane now for Larssen. Going to give him A, 1v1 pressure, B, ability to execute, you know, and pressure a singular target in a team fight. You know, you'd imagine that'll either be Kadril or Upset. And also tower taking potential in a side lane. So, you know, Larssen has got split push pressure. He has got side lane pressure, more specifically as well. We do have to respect that, and Schalke will have to respect that as well. They want to be able to group around this Corki, especially when he's got... Oh, that's a big
nice hook onto Upset. Hang on a second, though, because remember in the game there's a Tom Kench.
There is a Tom Kench who can spoil the fun of these kind of great hook situations.
Oh, Upset, hang on a second, though, has to heal. Woolite steps up big, does use the ultimate to push him away. Upset almost going down, had to heal just off the back of that one. Stepping a little bit too far forward, especially when Woolite has the Infinity Edge and Static Shift.
Looks like Dan might be moving towards a Frozen Heart, which I think is a very useful item to pick up into this composition, because you've got both Kadril and Upset that you can punish with a Frozen Heart, you know, both of them having some sort of element of attack speed in their kits. And Dan is going to be in the midst of the team fights. He's going to be running in using Absolute Zero and Ice Blast, trying to reduce movement speed and attack speed anyway, and Frozen Heart's only going to amplify that even more. So it makes sense for Dan to pick up this item here. Obviously Ninja Tabai, item of choice as well, knowing that Kadril, despite having a large magic damage component, has got some element of AD in his kit as well that you do have to respect.
Yeah, remember they are basic attacks as well, so it reduces regardless of the AP and AD ratio on the basics, so regardless of the fact, Dan's going to be unkillable.
Yeah.
Secret Agent Nunu right now needs to get a few more wards down. I mean, we spoke about the vision line for Dan earlier, and for War in general. Heavy War presence in Schalke's blue side, and now losing that pressure a little bit, and now, you know, double warding a bush is going to help, yes, but regardless of the fact, I think Dan needs to kind of push his vision line up a little bit more, because they are going to want to work around this mid turret right now. Dan's been here for a long time. He needs to make something happen. JWoww does have the Stand United available to him as well.
We haven't really talked too much about the gold lead, and it is about 3,000 gold down right now for Wind and Rain. And you're trying to work out where that comes from. Turrets are even at this point in time, kills are even, so it's got to come down to the fact that we're looking at about a 40 CS difference and a 30 CS difference in the jungle and top. Everything else is moderately even here.
Hey, Woolite. How's it going? Says Upset. Noscaran was there to avert the hook from AOD. And now, 4 members in the mid lane for Schalke. Dan is going to be here as well, but not too much turret to clear. Larson off to the sideline is going to get spotted by that ward. Takes a tongue lash as well. And Upset, consistently pressing those Qs, just getting a lot of damage down to Woolite, as I mentioned before. Hasn't got very much regeneration in his kit. No lifesteal really to speak of. Down off the sidelines. Schalke maybe looking for a little collapse here on the mid.
I am worried about the team fight for Wind and Rain right now. I don't think it's fantastic. It does, well, wait a second, I say that.
Oh, Noscaran, he's going to eat it, but Woolite explodes Upset in the belly of Noscaran. And now War taking out Upset away from the game. Did blow the flash as well. That Infernal Drake is going to be on the platter. Handed to them, you could say. It's going to be the second Drake to their name. Zemento is on the other side of this wall, but I can't imagine he just want to risk his life, especially against the Nunu. It's going to go straight over to War.
Upset just a little bit too far forward, not respecting the critical strike damage of Woolite as well with the Infinity Edge, the Static Shift, and a Zeal finish too. That's a lot of crit that you have to pay attention to, and they're going to get the mid lane tier 1 off the back of this as well. I was about to talk about the team fight from Wind and Rain, and I was worried about the fact that you're going up against a Corki, a Twitch, with his ultimate. Smitty J at this point in the game is very strong, and this is kind of where Renekton thrives around this mid-game period. But Upset gets himself caught out single-handedly by Woolite there, executes any potential for a team fight for Schalke before it even begins. And when we talked about Woolite needing to step up as an AD carry, we talked about Woolite potentially underperforming for the first 2 weeks of this Challenger Series. Or he wasn't there with the first week, I guess, because obviously the Wind and Rain didn't have those subs in. But, you know, he's maybe needing to step up for Wind and Rain as a carry. Certainly finding a home on Tristana here. Picks up his Rapid Fire Cannon and the Berserker Greaves. The classic Caitlyn and Tristana build right now.
I mean, you've got to treat the Tristana like a Caitlyn at this point, because the amount of burst potential he does have. And with those 2 items picked up and it's sitting at 2-0, it's going to be very healthy for him. But you've got to look to this late game Twitch, the hyper carry that is Upset. He's played the cog. He's played the Twitch now. Woolite taking a lot of chunk out of Noscaran. Rat-a-tat-tat does get opened up. Upset is just going to make sure they stay nice and unhealthy and nice and poisoned. And Mort is just going to have to back off at this point. The spray and praise right now, they haven't been so much to find a kill. But speaking of kills, Smitty J in a 2v1 is going to get easily taken out by Woolite. JWoww, I believe, sorry. Schalke now starting off this Baron.
That's a very quick Baron. That's a
he's just ripping through it with this Corki. That's going to go over straight to Schalke. So, flash hook from AOD, doesn't really find anything too much. It's going to be a flash away from Memento, though, to make sure he didn't give up his own life. And now War, what are they going to do next with that Baron buff on Schalke and that gold lead ever extending to about 2,000? Dan trying to find something, but he can't find too much.
Wow, what a response from Schalke. They get a good trade in the mid lane in favor. To be careful here, Dan.
Cocoon onto Dan. Stand United from JWoww is going to keep him alive, but Woolite a little bit too far forward, gets taken out by Cadril. Here comes the Abyssal Voids off to the sidelines. Will they want to chase anything up? I don't think so. The gap is just too big, but Woolite overstaying just a little bit, using that Rocket Leap a little bit too late.
Suddenly, a poor decision by Wind and Rain to rotate to take out Smitty J, who realistically is not a massive threat in the side lane at this point. They were just going for it for a kill's sake. Schalke take a good trade, they get a lot of pressure onto Wind and Rain's mid lane trio, and then just make a split decision to go for Baron. They've got such a quick Baron team with Corki and Twitch. They take it down so readily and so easily, and with Leandries on Memento as well. And War were just so slow to respond there, and at the end War thought, well, we need to get something from this, so just force them back. We have a man advantage, we can go for the mid lane tier 2, at least get some reprise. But weren't able to get the siege, and Woolite was just, he was hesitant. Woolite was hesitant to back out. He thought a couple more basic attacks and I can take this turret, but didn't take the turret and pay for it with his life as well.
When we spoke about the disadvantage War have had in the early stages, it wasn't so much a factor in this game, and Schalke's mid-game has been absolutely on point. Well, regardless of trading kills, still managing to secure those big global objectives that Dan is going to have to take control of. And the one stat I have written down as well, Schalke has one of the quickest games, or the quickest game, sorry, in the Challenger Series right now, around 24 minutes. So their mid-game really coming to shine here. And now Woolite, yes, he's online. But Upset's getting to that point now. He's got the Blade the Rune King, he's got Runeans and an extra BF sword going into what you could imagine would be an Infinity Edge. with that Baron buff as well to boot, Schalke in a very, very good position.
Yeah, they need to do something with the Baron buff, so they're going to start to shove these side lanes. Smitty J is going to make it very difficult for JWoww to clear these waves with just a Titanic Hydra, although Smitty J doesn't actually have the Baron buff, so let's scrap that point entirely. But realistically, with Twitch obviously going to the top lane, they're going to rotate around him now. He is very powerful at this stage in the game. Kadril as well, able to shove lanes very quickly and consistently. This could be an opportunity for Schalke to execute and punish War for what was one mistake. We talked about, you know, Wind and Rain not impressing in the early game up until that one move to go for Renekton, and then they lost the Baron off the back of it. I was impressed with War. In fact, I actually think they'd had the upper hand. Despite being behind in gold, I think that they were playing to their game plan, which was get to that later stage of the game where you've got Larssen, who can basically delete Upset on Twitch. You've got Woolite, who's only going to scale up further and further as the game goes, and you've got the combination of the Blood Boil from the Nunu, which gives him even more attack speed to make him even more threatening off the back of his own attack speed steroid. You look to this late game team fights for Wind and Rain, you're saying, okay, they're good. You know, you can all rely around Woolite. Not many people are going to be able to pressure Woolite in these fights because you've got Dan there for Peel, you've got AOD for Peel, but they made that one mistake, and now Schalke are looking to punish them for it, and they have done so not so well so far, but they've got a little bit of time to push in with Kadril and Twitch onto this mid lane tier 2, but I've got to say the response from War has been good, able to turtle very quickly.
Oh, Memento finds Dan. Dan taking a fair bit of damage now. Has only got that Frozen Heart in the center. Oh, nice hook onto the invisible Twitch, but it's going to get eaten up by Niskaran. And now Larssen joining this fight. Doesn't have teleport, so actually had to walk down to that mid lane. Dominus pot from Smitty J, maybe looking for JWoww, but underneath the turret, not so hot. However, Memento's going to be there as well. A dash away from JWoww. Smitty J is going to be able to back off. That Dominus being popped just for that turret, taking a nice rotation from Schalke to secure themselves another turret.
Yeah, and it forces a rotation from Wind and Rain, which now means Schalke can move through that blue side jungle and maybe get another tier 2 turret. Baron buff is gone now, though, but they should be able to, with just the man advantage that they have right here, take a very quick turret and back out. Doesn't look like Wind and Rain are able to respond.
Oh, Larssen! Hang on a second. Force bolts onto 4, goes golden, gets out away. Locket being popped as well from AOD to keep him alive. A very, very aggressive teleport actually coming in from JWoww on the back line. Upset goes instantly invisible. That's the taunt onto JWoww. And look at Niskaran. He's in the front line. He's going to chase him down. Great Health still not popped. Has got that as a safety net. He's going to be able to back off here. Upset did blow that heal to be able to get away. But regardless of the fact, that big teleport now down from JWoww is going to be pretty huge. However, War capitalizing on this, taking another mount.
You don't need to get kills to win a fight. This is one of the golden rules of League of Legends, and you often see it in this kind of level of play. As long as you can make or render your opponents incapable of contesting you regardless by getting them to such a low HP that it's almost impossible for them to respond, you've won the fight anyway, and as long as you can capitalize on that fight. The most important thing is being able to capitalize, and Wind and Rain did. Took another Mountain Drake, two Mountains and an Infernal. If they can get to the stage where they are back to sieging towers, trying to rotate around these tier 2s as their next objectives of a primary target, it's a very, very, very good set of dragons for Wind and Rain to have.
Well, Kadril has found Larssen, has got that package as well. That's going to be a lot of damage. Is he going to be able to follow this one up? He did exhaust Larssen. So, you know, just having to back off rather sharpish. Has got Roa to heal him up. Zonya's still not available to him, so doesn't really want to make any aggressive maneuvers or plays. Has to actually just back off here. Now Kadril and the rest of Schalke just moving up. And it's not going to be an easy task for Woolite now. Hook goes a little bit wide.
They are going to shove in, and that's Kadril single-handedly off the back of that small engage with Larssen, picks up another turret for Schalke, going to extend their gold lead to 6,000. Smitty J picking up the BF sword, going towards what we imagine is going to be a Guardian Angel. Does give him that ability to shove even harder, though the BF sword only going to make it harder for JWoww to cope with that wave shove of the Renekton. And that's where JWoww is right now. JWoww is just literally clearing waves versus Renekton. He shouldn't ever really lose a tower because that Titanic Hydra will give him good wave clear regardless, and Taunt and the rest of it will be able to slow Smitty J down. But he's never going to have the advantage in the side lane. Smitty J will consistently be able to shove waves quicker than JWoww can clear them, so you're always going to have that lane pushing in favor of Schalke, which means they can make good rotations around that, and you see they've been doing it so far, going from that top lane tier 2.
Both these teams right now, very, very clean game, very little kills, and being able to capitalize on, like you said, not just kills, just sending the enemy as low as possible in order to force other objectives has been very, very important. You'd think Dan on this Nunu pick who would have bigger advantage over this Baron, but they've taken as many dragons as they like at this point. Only losing that one Mountain Drake in the early stages has really worked out well for them, and Woolite is really coming online, actually picking up a Bloodthirster instead of the Guardian Angel, so that health and lifesteal is going to be very, very important to him.
One of the major things that he's been, unfortunately, the sort of... Oh, wait a second.
Oh, hang on a minute. Cocoon does land to AOD. Dan's going to be here as well. Here's the rat-a-tat-tat. He instantly takes out AOD out of the fight. Well, it's going to have to retreat. JWoww not really there for the Stand United. I mean, AOD just blew up much quicker than they could respond.
I mean, he didn't have flash. There was nothing else he could do than go for a hook. I don't know why he took that route, though. I mean, you knew that the rest of Schalke were in... Oh, wait a second.
Oh, Woolite, 2.5 attacks a second with that Nunu Blood Boy. Here comes the Force Pulse as well from Larson. Smitty J popping that Dominus is going to come around from the side. Has even got that GA as well, so if he goes down, he will pop back up in the fight. That was Woolite once more opening up on Upset, who's been pushed up a little bit too far forward, maybe disrespecting the Twitch, but Noscaron is always going to be there with the Debao.
Yeah, he's always going to be able to bail him out in those situations, but again, that prevented them from going for something like a Baron. It would have been risky to go for a Baron regardless, you feel, for Schalke. You're still going up against a very strong four-man of Wind and Rain. You've still got Larson and Woolite available. You only took out the support, so there's still a lot of issues to deal with before you can take a free Baron like that for Schalke, so they knew that they were basically baiting it and trying to draw in a 5 versus 4 fight. We're going to talk about AOD's positioning there. Again, he probably shouldn't have taken that route. You knew that Schalke were in the river brush there. You knew that potentially they had that area vision warded. It was just a small positional error for AOD. Woolite going for the Bloodthirster as well, something you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, over the Guardian Angel. I think one of the major issues Woolite has been facing in the midst of these fights has been the Corki rockets. He's been taking way too many Corki rockets before fights even break out, which makes him unhealthy before the fight begins and makes it hard for him to take aggressive positions because he knows he's punished far more easily. So going with the Bloodthirster just alleviates some of that issue, just gets him back to full life as soon as he takes a Corki rocket with the amount of lifesteal that the Bloodthirster provides you. So yeah, I think that's one of the major issues that Woolite was facing, and it just kind of, again, like we said, alleviates that problem.
Yeah, kind of proving your point just there. Flash Cocoon from Memento, Rocket Leap away. Here comes the Sub-Zero from Dan. Ends up just having to back off, has to flash away. Now AOD in the front line. Stand United is going to get used. Larson enters the fight as well. Smitty J's got that bomb on him. Does have the Guardian Angel to bail him out. One more shot. There we go.
Oh, he missed it.
Misses the taunt. Now he's in the middle of the fight, but regardless of the fact, JWoww still on the back line. It's not going to matter. Smitty J comes back in, still alive from the GA. Ends up picking up AOD. Memento's going to get traded back. Larson picking up a kill onto Smitty J, and Woolite picking up the kill on Memento. An equal trade, you could say here. Dan not going down, though, is going to lead Schalke to not really capitalise much on this, though.
Oh, it was so close. Schalke committed so many resources to kill off Woolite right at the start of that fight, but he manages to escape, and like we said, the Bloodthirster brings him back and roaring into the middle of the team fight there. He was using that, got him back up to full life, made him a much more significant threat in that team fight. And once those resources for Schalke had been expended, they had nothing left to then reclose the gap as Wind and Rain decided to re-engage. Forced their flash out to Smitty J to go in there, and that was what basically gave Schalke that even trade in that team fight. Larson as well expended a lot of mana just to chase down Smitty J's Guardian Angel, which then prevented him from making aggressive rift walks to the backline to deal with Cadril and Upset. That was such a close team fight between both of these teams, but Woolite definitely made the right decision with his itemization choices. If that wasn't there, if that was Guardian Angel, that was Schalke winning the fight, getting Baron, and probably taking the game. So it shows you how much difference these kind of items can make.
I mean, the sustain over the actual coming back to life, because that's a long amount of time. That's about 3 seconds you're down in that GA. 2.5 actually, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's you out of the fight. You're not doing any damage at that point. Woolite, at the moment, especially with the items he's got and the items he's going for right now, probably going into Mortal Reminder or the Lord Dominix, he's going to be ripping through Smitty J. He's going to be ripping through Noscaron. Woolite is very, very scary at this point. They're actually going to turn on the Elder Drake here. Completely pronounced to Schalke. JWoww is going to come forward as well. Has got the teleport, hasn't got the Stand United. Dominus is going to get popped from Smitty J. Smite and Consume is going to secure it for Dan. Last in the front line, Upset. He's just going to rat-a-tat-tat his way through the team. There's the absolute zero, but it's not going to do all too much now. Woolite is in the fight. They do manage to take out Cater on the back line. JWoww in amongst 4 members of Schalke will end up trading his life. And will be mid laner for top laner. Schalke and Moore now not wanting to fight. They are just going to go straight for this Baron, though.
I think they know it. Larson's going to teleport in here. This is going to be a big fight with Elder Dragon. I don't think Schalke can stick around for it, Jaws. It's whether War can even force the fight, however. The only way they can force fights realistically is by walking up with Dan or getting a hook. They are making a bait happen here, though.
Oh, they're trying to bait. They kind of know it's in their brush. Upset's on the sideline, dealing free damage. Rocket Leap away from Woolite, but it's not going to save him. Repel onto AOD. He's going to be the next target. Upset with the double kill. The hyper carry Twitch has come online, and that bait working out for Schalke perfectly.
I mean, that was definitely all about the face check from Wind and Rain. Could they not just have warded over the Baron pit? I mean, you just basically walked directly into Schalke without any respect for the fact that you had no vision in that river area. Massive mistake by Wind and Rain, and they're going to lose the Baron for it. Elder Dragon as well, not having any use because they all just got obliterated in that team fight. That is the kind of situation that Kadril and Upset are going to thrive in. If you basically walk into a Twitch and a Corki, it's perfect time for them to set up the massive combo of that Phosphorus Bomb and damage that Corki can put out, and Twitch just able to get a really well-placed ultimate at 2. And again, the position of Woolite made no sense either. He basically face-checked a brush and then was stunned by Smitty J, which won the fight for Schalke right at the very start of it. I felt like they could have been more cautious. You have to respect the fact you have Elder Dragon and you don't think Schalke are going to go straight for the Baron, or you could have maybe even used that Tracker's Knife to ward over if you had anything left, but that was a disrespect for the lack of vision they had around that Baron area.
And now with most members on Schalke, I believe it's 4 out of 5, having that Baron buff. And with Larson and Dan being the only ones alive with the Elder Dragon, that's going to run off in a few seconds, you can imagine, as well. They've had that for a fair while. There's been 2 team fights since. And now Schalke can really make this stick. With this Baron buff, it's going to be... It was very hard for them to siege against Woolite, but they can just sit back with the minions, no problem. They can push either lane at this current moment in time. They're on inhibitor turrets.
Something that we didn't touch on, by the way, and it's been like this way for a while, is the fact that Norscaran has got Knight's Vow, an item that has been making a rise in popularity, especially on the tankier supports. That means Norscaran is going to heal off Upset's damage, and it means that he's also going to tank some of Upset's damage as well, which is great against the likes of this single target focused Larson build with the Lich Bane. It's going to make it a lot harder to take Upset out, especially with that Mortius there. And it also makes Norscaran a very tanky, very good frontlining support because he has that regeneration from the big team-wide damage that the Twitch can provide. It's a great teamfight potential here for Schalke. Big fight breaking out.
Smitty J. It's going to be a leap away. J-Wa actually flashing into the fight, does miss the taunt, but regardless of the fact, Larson has to back off as well. Does face a 1v1 with Memento. Smitty J almost getting taken out completely. You can see the amount of damage Woolite's doing. Has completed his Lord Dominic's regard, so he's shredding through the tanks. A Gargoyle stone play actually from Smitty J is going to be very, very helpful. You can see him every single fight. He's in amongst at least 3 people. He pops that invincible almost, and Woolite has got almost a complete new person to take to damage through. If you think about the Gargoyle stone play and what it kind of does, buffs up your HP to ungodly levels.
Yeah, it makes him very difficult to take down because he is the guy that is going to be soaking the most of the damage for Schalke. He has the ability to get in the midst and make Gargoyle stone play as effective as it can be with his slice and dice as well. And also you have to look to the fact that at this point in time, JWoww's making these really aggressive, quite flashy flash taunt plays, but isn't really finding an opportunity where anyone can follow up. I love the fact that Shens can do that, but you need to be able to follow up off the back of a Shen taunt. You can't just do it for the sake of it. You need to be able to then capitalize by getting people to the back line. And the problem is if you do it onto Twitch, you still have to deal with Kadril. So, you know, Larson and Woolite, if they go aggressive by catching Twitch, they could just die to Kadril because the burst damage of a Corki at this stage in the game is very, very strong.
Kadril's name over in Korean was focused on improvement, and that's exactly what he has done. Really impressive on this Corki thus far. Positioning has been perfect, only has given up 1 death. Packages, a little bit something to Zaya. Oh, spraying and praying. Wow! Upset on his own at that point versus 3 people from War. They have to actually back off. Dan almost got down, did have to burn the flash, and that will mean a turret and an inhibitor in that mid lane going over to Schalke.
That's all you need to do as a Twitch. This stage of the game, spray and pray on a pretty low cooldown as well. You can see already quarter way to being back for Upset. You just walk in, spray and pray, and again, there's not many ways apart from a hook or a taunt for Wind and Rain to punish. So JWoww, having used his flash already and was on the other side of the map clearing the bot lane, Upset felt very comfortable by just moving up with the stealth, using that spray and pray, shoving down Woolite and Dan, forcing them back off that turret and then getting a free inhibitor off the back of it. Because again, there was no way realistically that you can punish it. And yes, you could say hook as a punish, but if you're in the midst of your Baron minions, it's still very difficult for AOD to land hooks onto his targets. You can use the shielding of your minions to make that happen, and that's what Upset did there. Nice play by them because it secures them an opening into the base now.
Well, look at the ability for War to get into team fights. Let's look at their team composition as a whole, looking from champ select at this current position. War, they've got the Shen for the taunt, yes, the flash taunt engage. Dan has to actually walk up to people, you know, you can throw out the snowballs for the slow, but to get any meaningful kind of distraction and getting the frozen gauntlet off and have its effect, he's going to be in the midst of the team fight. Regardless of the fact, Larson's going to jump in and get deleted. Same with Woolite, he has to stick on the backline. They're really hoping for a hook from AOD, but then you look at Shulker, the amount of suppression and damage they have from just upset alone, and Cadril being these two long-range marksmen, is so hard for War to actually make a big engagement. But then Shulker have got Smitty J to back them up, and Memento with the Cocoon to dissuade them as well. Absolutely all-rounded team comp, you could kind of say, from Shulker, and War not executing this 1-3-1 composition like we were mentioning earlier too well, just because Larson and JWoww have had to be in these fights almost 24/7.
I think War really needed to snowball off the back of early tower rotations with the Tristana. And you're now at the stage of the game where, yes, Tristana is strong, but it's so difficult to go in. That's a big engage.
AOD does use that play. He's going to be able to find the hook on the invisible upset once more. He is going to get devoured completely. Absolute Zero does come out now. Smitty J is going to pop that Gargoyle Stone Plate. Look how big he is. Look how much HP he has. Dan has no damage, but Woolite does. He's going to have to find something here. They flash underneath the turret. JWoww's not going to go down. Larson gets exhausted, but he goes golden. There's the hook on Nuscarin. Still has the great health. GA pop for Smitty J. When will someone die? Not today, apparently. Shulker, just with the disengage tools, are able to just dissuade War. No pick for AOD, no kill for War.
And Tahm Kench is the perfect pick for this situation. The only way that War get a meaningful engage in a fight is if you get a hook or an engage from AOD, and guess what? Tahm Kench can devour out of that. So they picked up Upset. It was an excellent hook from AOD, but it is so simple for Nuscarin to nullify that engage, and nullify he did. Puts Upset back into a safe position. Upset unleashes the spray and pray and suddenly starts to turn the fight back around. A counter engage from S04 because of that ability to disengage the Twitch and put it back into a safe carry position. It was so close to Wind and Rain, you felt that, you know, that there was potential for them to sort of turn things around there, especially when they had Smitty J going low and popping his Guardian Angel, but Gargoyle Stoneplate did a massive amount of work. He's actually sold that now. Picked up a Locket the Iron Solari and a Thorn Mail. Basically wanting to be a real issue for Woolite in that front line, you imagine. Also, the shield now on 712 going off max health.
Absolutely.
Sorry, sold the GA. No, I'm talking about.
He sold the GA.
I got the icon squeeze. He's kept the Gargoyle Stoneplate. That's going to make that Locket the Iron Solari, when the Gargoyle Stoneplate is procced, a ridiculous shield. Look at this, though. This is a Baron started up again, going so quickly here, George.
You say started, I say ended. There we go. Shulker picks up yet another Baron. War are going to try and respond to that one with a mid-lane turret.
They just need
Tier
to fight
2 is going to go down. They're all actually going to recall here. Will they be able to get any meaningful damage up on this? Those bombs going to do a fair bit of damage. Woolite, the turret taking machine.
That was just ridiculous.
Oh, yes. Has sold his boots, has got Phantom Dancer as well. They're going to look for the engage here. War are just going to be able to back off rather handily, though. Still taking 2 turrets. Trading over the Baron. It isn't good for them, but it's still something. Bandaging that wound.
They need to force the fight somehow. Smitty J without Guardian Angel means he can be a bit more susceptible, but Locket the Iron Solari and Gargoyle Stoneplate combo sounds like a pretty nice way to dissuade damage from Wind and Rain for me. I think that's probably going to be too much for Wind and Rain to have to break through. Again, Tristana she's a good late game carry, but not hyper carry levels of Twitch.
It's actually terrifying. Smitty J getting into the team fights. Popping the Gargoyles, popping the Locket. Unkillable, and the rest of his team getting massive health buff as well. Let's look at the gold totals really quickly. Look at Cadril in the mid, 20k to Larson's 18. But look at the 80 carry, still almost neck and neck.
Look at the CS values on Twitch and Tristana right now. Tristana 532.
Over 10 CS a minute. Absolutely disgusting amounts of CS, but regardless of the fact, still chomping away on those turrets. Turret did go down to that bottom lane, so War, you know, they do have those Winions available to him, that 5th man. Oh, sorry, 6th man, even. I'm going to be able to say that tier 2 turret in that bottom lane, so still, you know, still bleeding out slightly, but they're not out of the game yet. If Woolite finds a massive fight and finds a good position in it as well without being just tanked up by Cadril, you know, just DPS down by Upset, you can imagine that they're going to be able to turn this one around fairly easily. They're going to start up this Elder Dragon as well. I mean, this is the point of the game now. Shulker, if they can get this one, they've got 3 dragons to their name as well. War getting a little jumped on here. AOD just gets melted, and there's Upset with another kill.
Just been such quick moves onto these neutral objectives for Shulker, and War have just been so slow to respond. That has been the way since around 28 minutes. By taking that kill on Smitty J in the bot lane, It snowballed into a returnaround move for Schalke that has resulted in them potentially netting the first game of this series. They look like they're moving in, trying to clear waves with Redemption, but it's not going to be enough versus the Baron minions. We're at the stage of the game, there's a big engage.
He's going to pray, he's going to spray, and he's just going to get devoured, but regardless of the fact, Upset just doing so much damage from the back. JWoww's going to be the first one to fall. Memento has to escape. There comes the locket from Smitty. Is going to help his team just stay alive in these fights, but regardless, Upset's still so tanky. We're like flashing forward, trying to pick off Kadril. He is going to be able to survive that fight, but only just. They managed to pick him off. You can imagine they might have been able to turn that one around, and that fight may have been stretched a little bit further, but Elder Dragon, Baron on Schalke, you're right, I think this might just be the slow chokehold now of War.
We're at the stage of the game now where the AD carries have sold their boots for Phantom Dancer. That has been a classic move for AD carries in the late game. You get rid of your boots, go for Phantom Dancer, you don't quite get the same level of movement speed, but the attack speed and the damage reduction of the Phantom Dancer is worth it, especially for Twitch, who is now sitting on the Knight's Vow damage reduction, or rather the damage soak. Morima Mortius, Phantom Dancer, look at the Iron Solari Shield in the combination with that Gargoyle Stone Plate. There's a lot of tools to keep this Twitch alive, and this has been how Schalke have been looking to play this late game. It's all about upset, all about upset.
He's upsetting War right now, that is for sure. That turret is going to fall. The inhibitor is to follow. Schalke just slowly but surely pressuring War out now. 95,000 to 82,000, the biggest gold lead it's had. And this actually could be the longest game here, Scoundrel. 52 minutes was the longest thus far. We're at the 50-minute mark, and it's been a very, very slow, concise game, you could say, from both these teams. Now JWoww trying to stem the bleeding as well in that bottom lane. Just managed to clear out a couple of waves, but he's going to be needed back in the base.
And Larsen is 2-0-3, but you feel like he's had such low impact in all of these teams. I mean, I haven't seen a time where Larsen's been able to get to the backline to do anything meaningful, because he's got to get through so much peel for Schalke. It's so difficult for him to get to a key target, because he's got to get through the Elise Cocoon, he's got to get through the stun from Smitty J, he's got to get through the Devour. We've got a big fight
Flash
breaking out.
Cocoon from Mento, here we go. Larsen jumps in, he goes gold, and he gets exhausted though. Upset, still rat-a-tat-tatting, ends up finding Larsen. You can see the damage just wailing through. JWoww can't step up to that fight, that turret goes down in the meantime. Now down off to the sidelines, isn't going to be able to get away without that Lantern's help. Another kill lands onto JWoww, he wasn't long for the world. Woolite now joining the fight, is so scared to just step up because of the amount of engage from Schalke. They're going to push that third inhibitor. It will go down. 3 inhibs for Schalke. Upset almost falls to Woolite. But regardless of that, they are just going to be able to back off now. And War, they got 3 inhibs down. Woolite's online. He's got full items. But Schalke, just regardless of the Baron buff being there or not, pushing their way to victory.
Woolite has been finding it difficult to get through the front line. So Woolite has spent a lot of his resources invested on trying to just basically attack the first thing in front of him. So he's never getting to the backline to deal the damage that his build can deal to the squishier targets. He's getting the odd stray attack onto someone like Kadril, doing about half his HP in 1 critical strike, but he's never in teamfight situations able to push through that front line, get past Norskeren, to get past Smitty J. Was there a case for a Blade of the Ruined King for Tristana? Somewhere in this build, taking something out and putting in a Blade of the Ruined King to help him get through that tankier front line, because it has been the major issue for him. He's that big hyper carry, but doesn't have the percentage health to build into his kit like a Cogmore or a Vayne would do. And he's still struggling to get these big hitting critical strikes through that front line, especially with Gargoyle Stoneplate, especially with Knight's Vow and double Thornmail now, and Frozen Heart onto Norskeren too. It's just impossible for him to get any damage done in these teamfights, because every piece of damage he's putting down is onto an insignificant target. And Larsen can never get to the backline to delete anybody, because now that backline is very tanky in its own right. With double Marlboy Meltius, you've got that Knight's Vow on Twitch. It looks like we're ending, or gearing up for the end of the game here though, Jaws. One final push from Schalke. They're trying to make it happen.
That could be it. Double super minion waves. JWoww comes in with the taunt. Smitty J is going to be the target. And now they're just going to jump straight on top of Woolite. He goes down. And now Dan, JWoww, they're trying to run away. Noskaren's going to nom him up. But JWoww's going to have to return to base. 1 turret falls. They're going to dive the fountain almost. JWoww is going to be the next casualty. And the next casualty after that will be the Nexus. Game number 1 will go over to Schalke. Their early game